Hello and welcome to Sounds on the Couch. I am very excited to introduce our next interview for you today. Introducing Amber Leigh. She resides in Maple Ridge in British Columbia in Canada. She's a young and a resilient woman with a real passion for music, nature, and art. Amber is known for giving back to her friends, her fellow creatives, and her local community. She's an advocate for oppressed voices within the world, speaking up and taking actions on issues such as mental health, disability, drug abuse, and the rights of indigenous people. She is also the mind and the visionary behind her musical project, the Crescent Cardinal. An authentic blend of self-taught and classically trained material, these songs are a window into Amber's creativity as a singer and a songwriter. She bolsters this with her second skill set of being a modest multi-instrumentalist with the acoustic guitar, ukulele, keyboard, and voice. There is so much that we can cover with Amber today, and I'm really looking forward to diving into this, and I know that you'll gain so much from this interview. So let's just bring her up now. Hello,
Hello.
Amber.
Thank you for having me, Karen.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course.
Yeah, so I guess let's just start. As I said before, there are so many things that we can cover here, and you're somebody that just gets involved in so many things. So I guess we'll just see where it goes. But would you like to maybe tell us a little bit about your background and what it was that first got you into music?
Oh, that's a very tough question. Do you want it from, the early stages when I was little? Uh, well, I guess,
What?
yeah, let's start there. That my first instrument that I ever laid hands on was a organ, actually. It was one of the
Okay.
little home organs, and that's what I grew up with, and I loved listening to the sounds of that. And then I had a melodica. So that was my first experience with music, and my dad played the guitar, and he inspired me to start singing. My parents would tell me stories of me singing outside on the laundry stoop, pretending to be a rock star. This is embarrassing. I don't know why I'm saying this. So I was always quite involved in music in elementary school, going into high school. I mentored a lot of the youth that were coming through when I was in the older grades. So I did a lot of mentorship there. And then when I was about to graduate, I got a scholarship. And then when I was in my final year in high school, I went around to the different elementary schools to help encourage different elementary schools to participate in the creative arts. And I found so much passion in that area, just supporting other creative minds to follow that journey. So then I went on to university to study music. I got accepted on alto saxophone and voice, and I chose to be a voice major. And that's where I studied a bit more. I also studied at the Leigh Community Music School. I did some private lessons there. And so in university, I studied for only about a year and a half because I had persistent multiple barriers in my home life, as well as I ended up moving out. It's a bit of a story that I won't get into. So I ended up having to leave due to unforeseen circumstances when I was studying music, and it was actually quite traumatizing, that event itself, as well as some of the experiences that I went through during university and that I went through at home. So I actually didn't play music for about 2 years when I moved to North Vancouver, and slowly I started to play at open mic nights when I was working, I think maybe 2 to 3 jobs in volunteering. I was trying to do a total flip and go into working in early childhood education. Went through some more difficult experiences and challenges. And, life happens. That's a phrase I often say if people get to know me. I say, life happens. You kind of have to roll with it. So I ended up moving again. I went through a period where I moved multiple times over the Lower Mainland, and I lost touch with music. So mentioning the early childhood education, I ended up studying at Langara College as time went on. And there was a class there that was music and movement, and I started to find that passion come back again, where I was able to give back to these early childhood educators knowledge on music that seemed so organic and natural to me. And then I started to get sick. And then I
Mhm.
actually had to leave the program. So I was really, really upset having to leave post secondary again. Talk about resilience. So I'm very passionate about encouraging people to be resilient, especially during these times. You can do it, find a way, there is a way, keep that passion, hold on to it. And so when I was sick, I actually met my boyfriend, now fiance. And while I was recovering, navigating these health challenges, it was just barrier after barrier after barrier of, I wanted to do music. I couldn't figure out how it, life just kept happening. Like, why does life happen? And so, as a belated birthday present, I think it might have been in maybe 2015, I want to say. He got me a ukulele. And so that's the one. I don't know if you guys can see it behind me, but he got me a ukulele. And that actually brought me back to music, to start composing again, to start bringing back those memories from those points in time where I'd experienced so much trauma. And I started to remember some of the music theory. Fast forward to last year, I met a musician named Peter Tam, and he welcomed me into the city that I live now, Maple Ridge, because I lived in, as I mentioned, different cities in the Lower Mainland. And he welcomed me into the community here. I met a lady named Pam Burns, who is a huge music enthusiast. Shout out to Pam, she's wonderful. And he encouraged me to just play holiday music with him. And I said, sure. I was so nervous. He was very welcoming, and we went around and we sang Christmas songs in different seniors' homes and brought them joy over the holidays. We did, we performed at the Community Silent Auction, which is a fundraiser. And yeah, it was just, it brought me back, and I started to get kind of those training wheels back. They came off, and now I feel like I'm riding a little bit smoother now. And now we're here in 2020, and life happened again. And the pandemic happened right when I was starting to get out and play again and, meet people. And it's just, yeah, so I just kept trying. You just got to keep trying. And I found you guys, Sounds on the Couch. I started a virtual uke circle online to help support some of the seniors. I used to work at a seniors activity center, and I invited them to come join in to help reduce social isolation. And yeah, so it's been my story is a little bit of a ping pong ball. Life isn't
Right.
linear, so
But there's so much to unpack there. I think,
yeah,
the story
yeah.
you've told is very inspiring, not just for the musical unfolding, which is amazing in itself, but I think something I'm really interested in from that is you've always had this desire to really help and teach others. You were talking about when you were at school, getting out and inspiring people. And then from there, you've gone through a number of traumatic experiences of
Hmm.
illness, things like that. And then you've not only managed to manage those things that you've been through,
Hmm.
um, but you've then used that and used your platforms as a vehicle to really be able to teach others how to deal with that and bring awareness, which is very inspiring. But what
Thank
do
you.
you think it is that has really driven you to be able to, or to, inspired you to really go and use those platforms for those purposes?
Oh, that's a deep question. I need to take a
Yeah,
breath for that
big
one.
one.
Breathing is good. It helps reduce anxiety. uh, well, I didn't know those platforms existed, and when I was sick, I stumbled upon this incredible community and this group called Spoonies. I didn't know what it was, and I met some people on Instagram. So before the pandemic, I started making these virtual connections, and it just made me feel less alone. Like what I was going through was 100% valid. It was normal, even though it wasn't considered, normal per se. It was normal to me. It was normal for a lot of other people. And that inspired me that it's okay if what I'm going through isn't the same as someone else. If they can take something from what I'm putting out there, if it serves them, if it resonates with them, makes them feel less alone, makes them feel better, if it teaches them something, that's great. They can let go of the rest. I'm okay with that. I would just love to give that spark of joy the way that the community, for the chronic illness community, the invisible illness community, and for fellow Spoonies gave to me. It's an incredible world out there. If you explore those hashtags, it's an overwhelming amount of support and connection online, and that's what I hope to see through the Crescent Cardinal, is bringing people of not just the invisible illness community, you know, chronic illness or Spoonies, but able-bodied people as well, coming together in this community online where we don't have to be alone with whatever we go through.
Oh, that's great. Would you be able to maybe, just for those who might not know, maybe explain a little bit about what an invisible illness is?
So, an invisible illness in a nutshell, for me, I guess, if you were to look at me, you can't see that I'm ill. I look completely normal. There's a lot of barriers that I face. It's, you know, sometimes if before the pandemic, I'd have to ask on transit if I was having a really challenging day, if I would need a seat, and sometimes I would be questioned. And that was a bit of a challenge, having to learn how to be my own self-advocate. And that's something that a lot of people are facing. I hope that answers that question. It's not something that you can see. And it's not to dismiss visible illnesses either. It's not to dismiss that. It's invisible illnesses can be mental illness. They can be autoimmune disorders. It can be chronic pain. It's such a large topic. And if you were to look at a Venn diagram, they overlap. So it's really hard to answer. I'm sorry.
No, but I think you've done that very well.
Okay.
I think, yeah, it's a really good image, I think, to be able to visualize somebody sitting on transport and be able to explain it that way. It's great.
And I guess to add to that, invisible illness doesn't discriminate. That's basically how I would say it. Doesn't discriminate against, you know, age, gender, etc., etc., etc. It could happen to anyone. Anyone could get sick. You know, so we can't assume.
So would you be able to maybe explain a little bit about the Crescent Cardinal? So what is it? And I know you said it was a ukulele club, but maybe a little bit more about that, and why did you decide to start that?
So the Crescent Cardinal is the name for my music. It's the name for this community where I love to support people, bring people together, and support other artists. The Crescent Cardinal Virtual Uke Group Community Online is a virtual ukulele circle where people can come together and share resources, share ukulele music, and we meet once a month, and we meet on Zoom, and we take turns. It's volunteer-led as well. We take turns leading the circle, and we have an afternoon open mic, and everybody gets to share a song. It follows a similar format to the ukulele circle that inspired me when I moved to Maple Ridge from the Maple Ridge Regional Library, from a lady named Cher and Linda, I believe, who run it. So yeah.
Oh, very nice.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Keep going.
I think that sums it up. I can talk quite a bit, so I'll refrain.
And I guess another question I'm curious about is, where did the name Crescent Cardinal actually come from?
I get asked that a lot, actually. It's, I see, ironically, I love chickadees, but it didn't really have a similar ring to it. Cardinals, when you look into the symbolism of them, there's a lot of information about them that you can take from it what serves you and let go of the rest. For me, one thing that I was drawn to was the symbolism of leadership, as well as when I was a young girl, I remember this tree on the balcony where there were Stellar's jays and cardinals that would, I guess you could say, play together. And I just remember that. And one day the tree got chopped down and then they were gone. That's a bitter part of the story. Nonetheless, so
imagine they went to another tree somewhere in the distance.
Yeah, exactly. So I've always been drawn to nature, and it's just something that it just spoke to me, that symbolism. And for the crescent part, I'm often curved slightly due to health reasons, so I'm awfully curled over, so it kind of works, I guess, playing stringed instruments.
Yeah.
And I try to hide it the best that I can for those who know me. And so it's just a little bit of irony and pun that I threw in there to do with health reasons, to just kind of keep smiling, you know.
Yeah. And I think for you as well, you play a lot of different instruments, clearly.
Mhm.
And, this creativity and this love of nature and art and music just seems to come through everything. Like, how does creativity affect your life, and what does it mean to you?
For me, I look at everything with mindfulness. That's something
Yeah.
that I really developed as a way to cope with tolerating distress in life. And it's really useful now during 2020. And I found that journaling also helped my creativity by really taking in everything, reflecting it. And again, that phrase that I keep bringing up, taking what serves me and letting go of the rest. And doing less with more focus as well. Thinking about, if I create this, what is the reason why behind it? What voice am I putting out there? I'm full of emotions. And
Yeah.
so a lot of my creativity stems from that, as well as focusing on the process. Yes, the product of it is great. However, I really enjoy the process of creating whatever it is that I'm doing. And if it's a success at the end of the day with the product, that's great. If it's not, then that's okay, because
Yeah.
I learned something from it. I took something from it, and that's great. And to me, I think that that's beautiful.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that that's such a valuable thing to put out there as well. I think so many of us are on that hamster wheel trying to create this perfect product, this perfect
Hmm.
song, and put it out into the world. And to be able to say, you know what, if it doesn't work out the way that I'm planning, then
Hmm.
that's okay, because I've taken something away from that. I think that's really important to share that message too. Lots of
And
great messages to share today.
yeah, one of the things I like to say is I feel like I'm on this journey with my music, with what I've been through. And it's a journey of being vulnerable. It's a journey of, all these imperfections and cultivating that resilience we talked about with so much love. And it is so okay not to be perfect as a musician. We put so much pressure on ourselves. I remember when I was studying music, I was so distressed all the time. I didn't even notice it. There weren't a lot of resources there when I was in university on how to cope with that. And it really
Yeah.
affected my mental health back then. And I didn't even realize it until later on, when I started to learn how to better manage that.
Yeah, and that stress can cause health issues for anyone as
Hmm.
well. There's a lot of research out there that's very interesting
Yeah.
in regards to that. I guess as well as building the Crescent Cardinal and developing your own music, you've done a lot in regards to your platform and in regards to general community things, with working with mental health
Hmm.
and with the music community as well. You've done many things. One of them was cycle and sing, which you wore 80s fashion, which
Oh,
I thought
yeah.
was very interesting. Would you like to maybe tell us a little bit about that, and maybe some of the
Sure.
other things that you've done as well?
Oh, of course, yeah. I had a feeling you might mention that. That's a little bit hidden on social media, by the way.
Yeah, I've been
So
digging.
I so for the Great Cycle Challenge Canada, I it was my first time doing it, and it's a fundraiser to help raise funds to prevent childhood cancer. So before my health challenges, I actually used to donate my hair for Locks of Love and for the other organization, Wigs for Kids, where they make wigs out of the hair. But because of health challenges, I wasn't able to do that. So I discovered the Great Cycle Challenge Canada. I think they actually have one in Australia as well and in the United States. And so they raise funds that go to help with more research for the Sick Kids Foundation. And so the Cycle and Sing, I came up with this idea by combining, you know, my skills of music, I guess my sense of humor, which is kind of weird. And by just having fun with it and thinking outside of the box and getting creative and thinking, you know what, it's okay if this isn't perfect. If this makes somebody's day, if they have a laugh, that's great. And so, yeah, I live streamed cycling on a recumbent bike, playing all sorts of instruments, and yeah, singing and chatting with the chat on Facebook Live. And yeah, raising that. And I raised, I believe, $543 over the course of the campaign. I'm actually hoping to do it again next year and do a Crescent Cardinal team. So if anybody wants to join in,
Yeah,
any
well, if
musicians,
anyone's
yeah,
interested, reach out. And then
yeah,
when you're planning to do it as well, Amber, let us know as
sure.
well. Yeah.
Sounds good. And then in May, I did another awareness event for ankylosing spondylitis. My focus was on NR-AXSPA, which is non-radiographic, oh my goodness, it's so hard to pronounce, axial spondylopathies. Don't quote me on that, but it's one of the conditions that I have, and I have dyscalculia, so it's so funny. I laugh about it because one of the conditions I have, it's really hard for me to say. It's almost cruel. So we had a bunch of artists that came together that played music, that talked about invisible illness, talked about the mental health, how, you know, invisible illness of physical health also affects the invisible illness of mental health. And it was a really great event, and we did it on Instagram. This is when I first started to sort of put my feelers out to start to feel more confident in my skills to do that. And then we ended up doing with some of the same artists a series of awareness streams for Canadian Mental Health Week, which was great, lining up to do with the, you know, the change of the music scene during the thing that shall not be mentioned that we're all experiencing right now. We don't need to bring that up. We know it's the elephant in the room. So my goals for mental health in the future is, well, recently I was nominated as a candidate to run for on the board of the Music BC Industry Association. I did not get a seat, and that's okay. One of the individuals, Dawn Pemberton, who I admire, she got a seat, which is fantastic. Super happy for her. And I'm looking forward to volunteering with them, joining some of the committees, and continuing following those goals of advocating for accessible mental health resources for musicians, because a lot of musicians are focusing on getting out there and playing, and I'm all for that however you wish to do so, as long as you're safe, as long as you're taking care of your mental health, because the industry is changing and we need to tolerate the distress that's going to happen with that. And I know from experience, not having those skills can really take a toll, and mental health comes first and foremost, in my opinion.
Yeah. So what would you say would be the first things that maybe if an artist is experiencing some of those things, how can they begin to develop those skills in
For
your opinion?
distress tolerance?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say it's okay not to rush. Take your time. Breathing helps. You'll see me breathe on stream. You'll see me breathe in moments like this. I have no shame, because we have to stay grounded in these times. There's so much distress, even outside of the music industry, that no matter where we are in the world, that we are going to be facing. And so breathing, staying grounded, being present in the moment. I believe in, like I mentioned, mindfulness and meditation to come to your center. The one skill that I learned that helped me the most is becoming self-aware of wise mind, emotional mind, and logical mind. If you're to look at a Venn diagram, they're on different ends. So emotional mind is basically running on impulse. Go, 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 go. I have to do this, without
Yep.
logic coming, which is Spock, like from Star Trek, saying, we need to think about this, but it's way too critical. And so they're completely opposite. We need to find that middle ground, that middle path when we make the decisions to either, do music online, do music in person, so that we can make make safe and healthy choices to support yourself and the people attending events, as well as your family too, because that's important. So that's my one most important piece, is learning about that emotional mind, wise mind, and logical mind, and using your breathing to come back and pausing before you make those choices to go ahead to put that self-care first. And it's okay to say no too. There's no shame in that.
Which I think a lot of people know in the top of their head, but in practice, it's a very hard thing to
It
implement
is,
too.
yeah.
Yeah. So just the last thing on mental health for now. What are some of the biggest things that you feel need to be done in the music community, whether that be through Canada or throughout the entire world, in musical platforms? What can we do to, one, promote mental health and to look after people in regards to their mental health?
I think having more conversations like this, being open, talking about what helps fellow musicians, coming together online is a great way to raise awareness, because different countries also have different resources and access to different resources as well, that I found through interacting with people over Instagram and sharing stories. Destigmatizing mental health is probably the most important thing I can talk about. And I'm currently on an advocacy train in my hometown. I won't bring it up currently, but there's something that I'm working on to do with my hopes is to change something where I'm at, because the best example I can give is where I am from right now. And again, in Canada, where I am, we are lucky we have MSP coverage, which is medical services plan. In places like the States, a lot of things are you have to pay for out of pocket. And I've had lots of conversations with people from the States about some of those expenses. And I feel so much compassion about that, with, needing to get an MRI done, needing to get a procedure done. So that's something that I feel so much compassion for. So for me, the one piece that I'm working on right now that's next for me for mental health is continuing to advocate, encouraging other people to advocate, to get involved. And so the change that I would like to try to see in the future, maybe in 5 years, is to people see that mental health is just as important as physical health, and to do with the health system. That's something that needs to be recognized. And where I'm from in British Columbia, Canada, I did some research, and it's quite separated, where if you need to get some supports that's MSP covered for mental health, you can't get sent to another city to get the same service where they, from their clinic, which is very bizarre. Even if it's a 20-minute drive away, you can't get access to that. So it boggles my mind, because if you have to go to a hospital in that same city where you can't go for mental health support, you can still go there for an MRI, or you can still go there for an X-ray. Whereas, mental health, it's different. So my question is, why? Why is it so separated? Why is it so different when it's just as important? And in all of the pain science and everything that they say, mental health affects your physical health. So why not take preventative measures and take care of that, so it doesn't create this feedback loop? Makes me a bit boggled. I could talk about it for a while, so I'll press pause on myself.
Absolutely. But I think it's so important at the moment, because I think particularly as we've been going through this time, it is something that we probably need to talk a lot more about. I mean, we always did, but I think particularly at the moment, because, mental health is going to be a lot more prevalent, I think, at the moment, when people are under a lot more pressure and a lot more strain. So thank you so much for sharing all of that as well. It's amazing. So with your music as well, something I wanted to say is I'm amazed at how many instruments you play and how you manage to do so much. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you managed to ugh, how you managed to sort your time to be able to, one, play all these instruments, write all this music, get involved in all these events, and perform as well, like all these things that you're doing. How do you manage to find the time to do all of these?
Well, I do have to say a big thank you to my fiance. He is a huge help. As well as two of my best friends, Alyssa von Wittgenstein and Kathleen Thompson. I would not be able to do it without them. Sometimes they're behind the scenes nudging me, be like, hey, remember you're supposed to do that. I do also use prioritization charts, a lot of calendars as well to stay on track, and I put my health first. That's my number one. And sometimes things will slide and I forgive myself, and that's okay because life happens. And I communicate with the people that I'm working with online. You probably remember when we were connecting, all of a sudden I disappeared and I said, I'm so sorry, I got a concussion. So life happens. I'm honest, and so that's how I manage everything. And with my instruments, I I do what I can. I'm not able to play the way that I used to, so I focus on the joy of playing. And when you focus on the joy and having fun, it doesn't seem like work. It's just enjoyable and it's relaxing.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the community online, I love it. And so it's enjoyable for me, and I love helping people connect. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's amazing. So, what's coming up in the near future with you and your music?
That is a good question.
Mm.
I'm currently fundraising for my first album. That's a goal of mine. I'm very goal oriented as well. And there's an artist named Carlos Monson. He's an R&B hip hop pop artist, and he is an emerging record label called 6M Records. And him, myself, and a rapper, different genre, named Knowlton, we're working on a few tracks together. So that's a little sneak peek of a
Great.
totally different kind of style that will be coming out. And that's separate from the album that I'm doing the fundraising for. However, I'm very excited and grateful to be working with Carlos. He is a very kind, compassionate individual. He's part of my social bubble, and I'm very lucky to have him in my social bubble. And he understands invisible illness. He understands mental illness and the barriers that I faced. And he can overlook them and see the positive qualities and what we can do when, say, for example, I'm having challenges with my back. If I have to lay on the floor, that totally doesn't bother him if I have to lay on the floor and sing instead when we're working on music. So it's thinking outside the box, being non-judgmental, and I'm so excited for those songs to come out because he has such a creative style, and Knowlton is, I would not be able to say words that fast. So that's
Definitely a
what's
skill,
next.
isn't it?
Yeah. And definitely some streams. I welcome folks to join me on Twitch TV. Twitch TV, it's very laid back. It's more like hanging out, and I like to be one-on-one with people. It's a very quaint community there, so folks are always welcome to come and request a song there. So yeah.
Great. So definitely check it out, everyone. I'll put some links in so you can find all of Amber's music as well.
Thank you.
So what advice would you give to any aspiring musicians that might be watching you and watching this interview?
That's a good question. Aspiring musicians, what do I have to say for you? Don't give up. That's what I would have to say. Don't give up. Keep trying. You're going to keep failing, except each time you fail, you're closer to success. It sounds so cliche. However, keep reaching out. Keep trying to make those connections. Be yourself. I'm anxious and awkward, and that is 100% okay. Someone told me that. So be yourself. Don't be afraid. And do what you need to for your health first. Music will be there. Music was there for me when I was going through things. I came back to it. It's okay if it takes time. Go at your own pace.
No, that's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much.
you.
Just before we finish up, is there anything else that you might like to share?
Anything else that I would like to share?
Asking all the tough questions now.
Yeah. I'm also a part of a group that's called Live at the Creative Cafe, and they're another welcoming community that I'm a part of. I can't believe I almost forgot to mention them. I feel so bad. Oh my goodness. Talk about lots of projects, hey?
Oh,
Yeah, so definitely them. They've been a huge support as well with encouraging this development of the Crescent Cardinal. And yeah, just keep taking care of yourself, guys.
yeah.
And thank you to Live at the Creative Cafe. Thank you, Karen, for having me on
Oh,
Sounds
no,
on the
thank
Couch.
you.
And yeah, explore the internet. It's a very interesting time. You're going to find so many wonderful places, meet so many interesting people like Karen, weird people like myself. And yeah, just there's going to be positives. It's weird. It's going to be good.
This has been so inspirational, and thank you so much for sharing everything, Amber.
Of
And we
course.
look forward to seeing what happens next with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully, I'll be back again someday.
Absolutely.